They didn't ask her name when they left her in the garbage dump. Flawed things didn't need names. When her family turned away, what remained among the metal and waste was not just a discarded body, but a life that had been denied the right to continue. And yet, even in the quietest corners of the universe, a single, misplaced act can change everything. The first thing she heard after being thrown away was an argument. Not voices like her family's, sharp and controlled and filled with quiet disgust, but two municipal sorting units yelling at each other in clipped machine tones about jurisdiction. One insisted the pile she lay in counted as organic overflow. The other claimed it was mixed waste, and therefore not its responsibility. They went back and forth for several minutes while she lay very still, face pressed against something that hummed faintly and smelled like burnt copper. She decided distantly that this was an improvement. When the argument ended, neither unit moved her. One rolled away with a sulk coded into its departure sound. The other powered down completely, apparently satisfied that ignoring the problem counted as a resolution. Silence followed, broken only by the rhythmic clicks of cooling metal and the soft static whisper of damaged circuitry all around her. She opened one eye, then, after reconsidering, opened the other. The sky above the garbage sector was not really a sky, more of a ceiling made of layered force fields that flickered between maintenance colors. Green meant stable. Yellow meant delayed repairs. Red meant someone important was about to complain. It was currently a lazy, indifferent yellow. Her legs hurt. That was normal. Her back hurt. Also normal. Her left side, where the nerve scaffold never finished growing correctly, sent confused signals that felt like pins arguing with each other. She waited for the pain to settle into something manageable, the way she always did, counting faulty pulses in her head. 1, 2, 3. On 6, the ache dulled enough for her to breathe properly. She tried to sit up. Her body disagreed. Something shifted beneath her with a wet metallic sound, and she flinched, ears flattening against her head on instinct. The long cartilage structures were sensitive, always had been. Another reason. There had been many reasons. Her family's last words replayed without permission. Practical words, clean words. Words about burden and probability and how the city offered humane disposal options. They hadn't pushed her themselves. They'd hired a service drone, very civilized, very efficient. The drone had apologized 3 times while dropping her. She laughed once quietly. It came out wrong, a thin sound that startled a nearby sensor into waking up. A red light blinked, scanned her, then blinked off again. Rude, she muttered, though no one was listening. The garbage sector stretched endlessly, layered platforms of discarded civilization stacked like careless thoughts, broken transport shells, failed domestic AIs still looping half-finished greetings. A holographic ad flickered nearby, its spokesperson frozen mid-smile, promising happiness in exchange for upgrades no one had wanted enough to keep. She recognized pieces of her world everywhere. That was the joke of it. Everything here had once been considered essential. Something crawled over her hand. She froze. Then she relaxed when she realized it was only a cleaning nanocluster, confused and operating on outdated parameters. It attempted to polish her skin, failed, and retreated in embarrassment, emitting a sound suspiciously like a sigh. "Don't worry," she told it. "Happens to everyone." Time passed oddly here. Without cycles or schedules, moments stretched and folded. She drifted in and out, not sleeping exactly but not fully present either. Once, a waste barge thundered overhead, shaking the platform and raining small debris around her. One piece bounced off her shoulder and sparked. She considered moving again. She did not. Her ears twitched when something new entered the sector. Not the heavy, automatic movement of drones or the distant hum of industrial systems, but a sound that stumbled slightly, paused, then continued. Footsteps uneven, organic, she frowned. Humans sometimes wandered into the outer layers but rarely this deep, and usually screaming. The footsteps came closer. Whoever it was muttered constantly, a stream of sound full of irritation and sarcasm. The words were strange, clipped, filtered through a translator field that struggled to keep up. I swear, every time the map says accessible, it's lying. If I wanted to die under a pile of garbage, I'd do it somewhere with better lighting. She closed her eyes. If this was a hallucination, she wanted it to be a better one. A shadow fell across her face. Not large, not mechanical. She felt it before she heard it, the sudden hitch in someone else's breathing. "Oh," the voice said. "Oh no, that's not Scrap." She waited. Experience had taught her that people often said nothing after that. A moment later, something nudged the metal near her head, carefully, uncertainly. "Hey," the voice tried again, "please don't be dead. I'm really not equipped for that emotionally today." She opened one eye. The human's face hovered above her, partially obscured by a cracked visor. His expression shifted rapidly through alarm, confusion, and something like guilt, as if he'd personally caused the entire garbage sector. "You blinked," he said, relieved. "That's good. Blinking is a solid sign." She stared at him, he stared back. His translator implant chirped softly, recalibrating. "You're not trash," he added, as if clarifying a mistake. She considered this. "Debatable," she said. He jumped. "You talk. Okay, also good. Slightly less good for my stress levels, but still good." He crouched, wincing as his knees protested. "I'm just here for parts," he said quickly. "I didn't know there'd be a person. I mean, alien person, you know what I mean, a person. Her mouth twitched despite herself. "Congratulations," she said. "You found one." Silence settled between them, awkward but not hostile. Somewhere nearby, a broken AI suddenly began playing cheerful music, then stopped mid-note. The human rubbed the back of his neck. "So," he said, "do you live here?" She laughed again, longer this time, and the sound echoed strangely through the metal canyons. It hurt, but not enough to stop. "No," she said, "I'm visiting." He winced. "Right, sorry, bad question." He studied her more closely now, eyes flicking to her ears, then away again as if worried about staring. "Can you move?" he asked. "Eventually," she said, "not quickly." He nodded, as if that confirmed something he'd already suspected. "Okay, I'm not supposed to interfere with anything, really. But also I can't just leave you here because that would make me a terrible person, and I'm already having a week." She looked at the yellow ceiling, then back at him. "If it helps," she said, "I was left here to die." He stared. "Wow, that does help in a horrifying way." He sighed, deep and resigned. "All right, new plan, I rescue you. We deal with consequences later." She watched him activate a gravity sled, its field flickering uncertainly as it tried to decide whether she counted as cargo or furniture. "You don't even know my name," she said. He shrugged. "I don't know the names of half the things I care about." The sled stabilized. He offered a hand, hesitant. She took it. The gravity sled complained the entire way. It emitted a low, oscillating whine that rose and fell as if sighing dramatically, its field stuttering every time the terrain dipped or a piece of magnetized junk tried to assert ownership over her body. Each time it faltered, the human flinched and muttered threats at it in a tone usually reserved for misbehaving pets. "I swear," he said, tugging the sled free from a nest of tangled cables, "you passed diagnostics this morning." The sled responded by tilting slightly to the left. She lay still, arms crossed over her chest, watching the ceiling drift past in uneven slices of yellow light. Motion made her stomach twist, but she focused on the sound of his voice instead. It was grounding, imperfect, real. "Are you always this noisy?" she asked, "or is this a special performance?" He glanced at her, surprised. "Oh good, you're still conscious. I was starting to worry I'd imagined you." "Unlikely," she said. "I would have been better looking." He snorted before he could stop himself, then looked embarrassed. "Sorry, that was inappropriate." "It was accurate," she replied. They moved slowly, partly because the sled was old, partly because the human kept stopping to reroute around unstable piles. Once, a stack of obsolete navigation orbs collapsed nearby, rolling past them in a cascade of glowing spheres that beeped frantically as they recalculated destinations they would never reach. "See," he said, gesturing at them. "This is why I don't trust things that think they know where they're going." "Your species crossed interstellar space," she said. "That suggests confidence." "Desperation," he corrected. "Very different energy." She closed her eyes for a moment as another pulse of pain rippled through her side. The sled adjusted, lowering its field intensity without being asked. She frowned. "It's learning," she said. He stared at the control panel. "It's not supposed to do that." She smiled faintly. "It likes me." "That's unfair. I've owned it for 6 years." They reached the edge of the garbage sector, where the infrastructure grew less chaotic. The floor smoothed into reinforced plating. The air shifted, cleaner, filtered. Her ears relaxed without her noticing until they weren't pressed tight anymore. The human keyed opened a narrow access corridor and guided the sled through. The lights flickered on as they passed, some bright, some dim, some buzzing irritably as if offended at being disturbed. "This isn't an official route," he said, as if explaining himself to the walls. "But it avoids security, and I really don't want to explain this to anyone with a badge." "Why not?" she asked. He considered. "Because the last time I tried to help someone, I ended up filling out 17 forms and paying a fine." "Your society punishes compassion." "Oh no," he said, "it just invoices it." The corridor opened into a small docking bay cluttered with equipment. Not trash, exactly, but not pristine either. Tools hung where they had been dropped rather than placed. A fabricator hummed quietly in standby, its casing dented and patched. A service drone hovered near the ceiling, asleep. He maneuvered the sled into the center of the space and powered it down. The field dissolved gently, lowering her onto a padded surface he dragged over with more effort than he wanted to admit. "Okay," he said, rubbing his hands together. "Good news, you're no longer in a garbage dump." She glanced around, debatable. "Harsh," he said, "this is a home." She turned her head toward him. "You live here." "Yes, temporarily, for several years." "It smells like solvent and burnt protein." "Comfort sense," he said defensively. He crouched beside her, closer now. She could see the fine lines around his eyes, the slight tremor in his hands as the adrenaline wore off. He hesitated, then activated a medical scanner, its blue lattice sweeping over her body. "All right," he murmured. "Let's see what we're dealing with." The scanner chirped, then paused, then chirped again in a tone that suggested confusion. "That's not alarming at all," he said. "What does it say?" she asked. "It says your biology is creatively assembled." She laughed softly. "That's one way to put it." He scrolled through the readout, brow furrowing. "Some of this tech is old. Like really old, but integrated, and some of it just stops halfway like it got bored." "It got abandoned," she said. He looked up at her. "Right, sorry." He cleared his throat and adjusted the scanner. "There's nerve damage, chronic, and mobility issues, but you already know that." "Yes." And he hesitated. "There's nothing here that says you're terminal." She watched his face carefully. "They told me I would be." He swallowed. "Well, they were wrong or lying or bad at science." "Also options," she said. He shut off the scanner and sat back on his heels. "You shouldn't have been thrown away." She shrugged, the movement small. "I was inefficient." "That's not a medical term." "It is where I'm from." Silence settled, heavier now. The service drone above them stirred, rotated once, then powered back down. He stood abruptly. "Okay, I'm going to get you something to eat or drink, or whatever your species does. Do you have allergies?" "Yes." He froze. "To what?" "Being ignored," she said. He stared, then laughed, sharp and relieved. "You're going to be trouble." "I already was." He moved around the space, pulling containers from storage, muttering to himself as he tried to remember interspecies nutrition guidelines. She watched him with quiet curiosity. Humans were strange up close, so much motion, so much noise for creatures without sensory extensions. He returned with a small cup, steam rising faintly. "This is a nutrient solution." Mild. If it kills you, I apologize in advance. She sniffed it. It smells hopeful. That's the yeast. She took a careful sip. Warmth spread through her chest, followed by a surprising sense of steadiness. Her ears lifted slightly. "Oh," she said. "Oh, good?" he asked. "Oh, very good." He grinned. "Score one for yeast." They sat like that for a while, her sipping slowly, him pretending not to watch her too closely. Eventually, she spoke. "Why did you come so deep into the sector?" He shrugged. "I needed a quantum coil, and I don't trust official suppliers." "And instead you found me." "Yes," he said, "my day took a turn." She looked at the cluttered bay, the half-fixed machines, the stubborn survival of it all. "You didn't have to help." "I know," he said quietly. "That's the worst part." She met his eyes. For the first time since being dropped into the waste, something inside her loosened. Not hope, not yet, but something adjacent. Something like the memory of standing upright without being watched. "My name," she said, "isn't important right now." He nodded. "Okay. But yours is." He blinked. "It is." "Yes." He smiled, small and a little tired. "It's Elia's." She repeated it softly, testing the shape of it. Outside the bay, the station lights flickered from yellow toward green. She learned the station's rhythms before she learned how to trust them. Lights dimmed and brightened on a cycle that pretended to be a day. The fabricator coughed every morning before producing anything useful, like it needed encouragement. Elias talked to everything, doors, tools, the station core, and expected replies even when there were none. Sometimes the replies came anyway, in the form of error messages that felt passive-aggressive. Her body changed slowly. Not miraculously. Slowly. The human medical nanites argued with her alien systems constantly, tiny internal debates that left her tired and occasionally nauseous. Once the nanites tried to optimize her nerve scaffold and triggered a cascade of misfired signals that made her laugh uncontrollably for 12 minutes straight. Elias panicked. "I broke you," he said, pacing. "I absolutely broke you." "I've been broken longer than you," she managed between breaths. "You're just remixing." He stared at her, then sat down hard on the floor. "I don't know if I'm qualified for this." "You rescued someone from a garbage dump," she said. "Your qualifications are fine." She started sitting up on her own, then standing with help. The first time she took 3 steps without collapsing, Elias applauded like she'd won a planetary championship. "You don't have to do that," she said, embarrassed. "I absolutely do," he replied. "I don't have a lot of wins." She learned his routines. He learned her silences. Humor slipped between them easily, a shared language that softened everything sharp. When she grew frustrated at her limitations, he complained loudly about his own. His bad knee, his unreliable tools, his inability to cook anything without yeast. "You see," he said once, holding up a lumpy meal, "we are both victims of flawed design." Weeks passed, or months. Time behaved differently when survival wasn't urgent but still uncertain. The station received a signal one cycle. An official one. Her family's crest flickered briefly across a diagnostic screen before Elias shut it off. "They're looking for you," he said. She felt something old tighten in her chest. "To retrieve me." "To account for you," he said carefully, "which usually means erase the inconvenience." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said, "I don't want to go back." He nodded. "Then you won't." "They have authority." "So do I," he said. "Just less paperwork." They argued late into the cycle, not with anger but with fear. Elias wanted to hide her. She wanted to be seen. Eventually she stood, really stood, and surprised them both. "I was discarded because I was silent," she said. "I won't be silent again." They opened a channel together. Her family appeared as projected figures, immaculate and distant. They spoke of errors and misplacements and the need for resolution. She listened without shrinking. When they referred to her as a failed outcome, Elias swore loudly in the background. She spoke calmly, about survival, about choice, about how she had been wronged and lived anyway. "This human," one of them said, "has interfered illegally." "He helped," she replied. which you did not. Silence followed, then something unexpected, a recalculation, not remorse but recognition. They disconnected without threats, without apologies. Elias exhaled so hard he nearly fell over. I think you scared them. She smiled, good. After that things changed faster. She modified the station's systems to better support her body. Elias helped, mostly by handing her tools and making unhelpful suggestions. She taught him alien problem-solving techniques that involved patience rather than force. He taught her how to complain productively. One day she walked the length of the docking bay alone. Another day she fixed the sled herself. The sled stopped complaining. You broke its spirit, Elias said, impressed. I empowered it, she corrected. Eventually she chose a name for herself, not the one she'd been given, one she liked. They watched the station lights shift to green together. Do you regret rescuing me? She asked. He thought about it. No, but I regret not doing it sooner. She nodded. The universe outside remained vast and indifferent, but here, in this patched-together place, something had been built. Not perfection, not efficiency, dignity. When she stepped onto a transport later, upright, steady, choosing her direction, she didn't look back with grief.